Welcome to New Hampshire Politics with John Burt. I want to welcome you today, and today our guest is Anne Marie Banfield, and she's with Cornerstone Action, and she is the Education Director. I want to thank you for coming on, Anne Marie.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Yeah. Now, today is going to be real exciting. I hope you can stay for the whole show, and what we're going to talk about is education. As I said before many times, education is extremely dear to my heart. We just cannot educate children. You know, I just can't talk enough about educating children.
Tell me about it.
And I just, we have problems in our school, and we need to address those to really get back on the right track, as I say. And I'll be real brief. I think I was telling you earlier, in 8th grade I had trouble reading, and I think I've mentioned this to the viewers before, and the teachers, they stayed after school. I don't think they can do that today anymore. So we got to fix that.
Yeah.
But what the show is today is it's on Common Core. And if you could explain what is Common Core so the viewers kind of understand, because I'm kind of still, looking at it going, what is it and why is it here?
Well, I think it's still being unveiled. So I think a lot of this, we're still starting to pull back the pieces and discover that, this is an entire reform effort. Common Core Standards is what it's called, Common Core State Standards. Right now we have English and Math Standards, Common Core in New Hampshire right now. But keep in mind, this is an entire reform effort. So I need to address it, in different ways. So I'm just going to talk about the standards for now, and then we'll move on to other parts of it as a huge reform effort. But the standards right now, there was an effort to nationalize standards across the nation. And that might sound good to some people because, at the time, each state had their own standards. Some of them were really good, some of them were excellent, some of them were pretty bad. So this was a way to say, maybe we should nationalize standards. So they came up with math and English to begin with, and there'll be social studies and science coming out later. But right now, the Board of Education, a couple years ago, voted to implement Common Core in New Hampshire for English and Math. So right now, we're implementing English and Mathematics Common Core standards in our public schools right now. Like I said, it's an entire reform effort, but right now we can look at the English and Math Common Core standards, the national standards. Some states rejected it from the very beginning.
Oh, they have?
Yeah, some states like Texas, Alaska. There's a few other states. There's other states that now after a couple years, they're starting to say, wait a second, we're not liking what we're seeing. Parents are starting to look at this and say, wait a second, we didn't even know this was coming into our schools. We didn't know anything about it. They're researching, and they are causing an uproar. Like, for instance, in Indiana right now, there is a big grassroots effort to just get it out of the schools, and Governor Pence just signed a law putting the brakes on Common Core in Indiana. So, nationwide, there's this kind of groundswelling of opposition to Common Core right now.
So what is the downfall, and what are they seeing that apparently New Hampshire is not looking at?
Yet. Yet, because I think as time goes on, we will. Well, for instance, the standards themselves, English and Math, they were developed, and when they were developed, Common Core asked two renowned experts to validate them, kind of give them their stamp of approval.
Now, is this on the national level or
Yes.
in New Hampshire?
On the national level.
Okay, so...
Right, so they developed these standards, and then they brought it to a validation committee. And on that validation committee, there were only two content experts. And what I mean by that is, on the English validation committee, there was only one English expert. And on the math validation committee, there was only one mathematician, for instance. They were chosen by Common Core, and they are renowned. One individual is Sandra Stotsky. She used to sit on the Board of Education in Massachusetts, helped develop the best English standards in Massachusetts. She has a PhD in English. She is, she has the credibility to say whether these English standards are good or not. On the math side, we have Professor James Milgram. He is out of Stanford University, well known in the math education standards movement. And so both of these individuals were supposed to validate these standards. Both of them refused. Both of them have critiques that they've written up, analysis of these standards saying the problems with it, the flaws, why they should not be national standards. These are not internationally benchmarked standards. They're mediocre at best. The English standards, Sandra Stotsky has said there's many flaws to them. Professor Milgram on the math standards said that the students, by the time they reach ninth grade, will be 2 years behind their international peers. For instance, they expect Algebra 1 to be taught in ninth grade. In the high-performing countries, this is done normally 6th, 7th grade.
Wow.
You get to Algebra 1. So
Yes.
we're going to be, the longer you stay in a New Hampshire public school,
Yeah.
the more likely you're going to be falling behind your international peers. I mean, that's essentially what this is doing.
Yeah.
So we didn't raise the standards to the level that both of these individuals would have expected, and they refused to sign off on them. So the experts at Common Core said, these are the experts. They're going to validate them for us. They're going to be the ones that are going to say these are worthy of being in your school. Both refused.
Well, what Common Core, they must have went, oops.
I don't know. I don't know.
They must not have been very happy.
Well, you know what? They should have offered up internationally benchmark standards. They should have
Yes.
offered up the best in the country, and then I guess they wouldn't have that particular problem.
Now, if a parent's watching, which I do have many parents that watch, how would they see their reports? Would it be on the Cornerstone website, or how would they get this information?
Well, it's pretty easily accessible on the internet. There's an organization called Truth in American Education, and you can sign up on their website to get almost like daily feeds. They are really covering this subject well, and I'm in constant contact with them.
What was that website again?
Truth in American Education.
Truth in American Education.
Yes,
All right.
probably one of the best websites that really will educate you on day-to-day issues. If a governor signs a law, or anything that, if there's new legislation introduced in a state that's going to fight Common Core, they are just on top of it. So, I constantly get their information. I'm in touch with the individuals at the organization, and they are just doing a great job of informing everybody across the country.
Yeah, so I'll look that up.
Yeah.
Truth in America Education.
Yep.
Yeah, Truth in American Education.
Yep.
Yeah, so I'll look that right out and see what they say, and now I'll be able to see about Common Core there.
Oh yes, very much so. Yeah,
right.
they're doing a great job exposing a lot of, what's going on with the whole movement. This is an entire reform of public education. I wish I could just say it was just the standards and we can just focus on that, but you're going to see a lot of changes in the classroom, and some of our schools I think are already starting to see it. I mean, this affects teaching methods. This affects the assessment. I mean, we can talk about the assessment, because if you have standards, you have to test those standards. So now we
Yes.
have a new assessment coming out. We had the kneecap that we used to use. The new assessment is called the Smarter Balanced Assessment. So that is going to assess how the students are performing with these standards. So if your student's going to be performing proficient, keep in mind we have low, mediocre standards. So if they're saying, hey, your child's proficient, well, maybe on at this level, but if your child was in Singapore, they wouldn't be proficient. This is a top performing country. So they need to keep that in mind. So when you get the results back, that it may look like your child's doing well, but on international terms, not so much.
Yeah, so really they've dumbed it down.
They've dumbed it down. And one other aspect about the assessment that I think is worthy of mentioning, there's another professor out of Johns Hopkins. His name is Stephen Wilson. And he actually did the kind of analyzing Common Core, the state standards versus Common Core standards, because we used to have a set of standards in New Hampshire, and now we've adopted Common Core. So he went through each state and kind of did an analysis. He also did an analysis on the new math assessment our kids are going to be taking under Smarter Balanced. And he went through the assessment, and he looked at it, and he kind of wrote a critique about it, saying that this math assessment that our kids are going to be taking focuses too much on communication skills rather than math computation skills. So again, if your student or your child is not performing well on the math assessment, is it because they don't know math, or is it because they can't explain why 2 + 2 = 4? So, you know,
Yes.
there's that complication. Then I just want to throw in something else. Now you have part of the strings attached to this, because you know there's always strings attached to any federal government national effort.
Yeah.
Part of the strings were that the teacher's evaluation would be dependent on how well the students performed on this assessment. So now you have an assessment that, in my opinion, I'm concerned about.
Yes.
I'm concerned that we're not really assessing math computation the way we should be. You know, does your child really know how math calculations, be able to perform the math questions that are asked, the actual math? Instead, they're being assessed on, you know, the communication part of it. So now you have the teacher's evaluation tied to this assessment. So now, is the teacher supposed to focus on really communicating or math computation? You know, are these kids going to fail an assessment because they can't communicate it well? You know, one parent brought up the other day that, you know, you think about dyslexic kids or kids with special needs, you know, and maybe having communication problems. They may be brilliant in math. They may
Yes,
be
yeah.
absolutely brilliant and may have may have trouble on this test. So now you have a teacher being evaluated to this assessment. And to add more problems, in some states, they passed legislation saying that the teacher had to be evaluated to this test, okay? And now you have maybe like a music teacher or a gym teacher being evaluated on how well the students are performing in math. And I don't know if that's being done in each local school district in New Hampshire, but that's something to look out for.
Yeah, but it'll probably be coming.
If other states have done it, it's a potential problem for sure.
So with Common Core, my stepdaughter just went, you know, a couple of years ago, was in college. She had to take math to catch up to college math
Yes,
because Goffstown didn't teach her the right math.
right.
Is that going to be the issue with Common Core?
That's the concern. That's absolutely the concern. You know, I think
So
that
it doesn't fix the problem.
No.
You know, because colleges are yelling at, you know, the public
Right.
schools saying, hey,
Right.
don't be sending these kids over here.
right. The problem is what's going ignored was what you were using in Goffstown. You know, you're using the reform fuzzy math in Goffstown.
Yeah.
Unless you get rid of it, you're going to have the same problem. Will Common Core fix that? I mean, you know, it depends on whether Goffstown says, you know what, we need to make our math a little more traditional. And if they see the standards as more traditional, then maybe they'll move in that direction. That would be a good thing. However, there's many schools that are saying, you know what, we need to use this fuzzy reform math because this is what Common Core, you know, it just depends on what the school says. So I don't think we're going to get any clear, definitive fixes when it comes to math education because, first of all, the standards are dumbed down.
Yeah.
The math standards are for sure, so are the English standards. And unless, you know, I suspect that you might see some schools move towards a more traditional math and maybe actually make some improvements. But that could have been done with or without Common Core.
Yes.
You know, if you're having a problem, and you are having a problem in the state of New Hampshire with
Yeah.
math because we have a 65% remediation rate, that's because of what they're using in the classrooms right now. I mean, they're using a lot of the fuzzy reform math, and that's the problem. I don't know if Common Core is going to fix it. I mean, we're implementing it right now, and I'm not seeing a whole lot of schools moving. I have seen some schools change out their math, and if it's because of Common Core, that's a good thing. But this is something they should have done on their own anyway.
Yes. Now, where's Common Core coming from? Is it coming from, you know, the current administration or from D.C. or out of the country? I mean, you know, where is it?
Well, that's a good question because, you know, unfortunately, this has not been the most transparent process. You're probably not surprised by that.
No.
Because, you know, both of these individuals that sat on the validation committee, I know them personally. I communicate with them. And so when they were going through the process of getting information to validate these standards, which they refused to do, they were talking about how this process was not transparent. Just getting information like what you asked, like who are the people creating these standards? who are the people behind this? Who's doing this?
Yes.
It was really difficult to get information for the people on the Common Core Validation Committee. They couldn't even, they were having difficulty getting the information. So this was basically the architects or the organizations that put this together, the National Governors Association and the Chief State School, or Chief, now you know what, now I can't remember the exact name, it's like CCSSO, it's the Chief State Schools something with Common Core.
Yeah.
But they came together, but they're not, you'll see that, this is not like a grassroots kind of attempt to make education better. This is a top-down approach again. The people involved, getting names, getting the individuals who are putting the standards together, that's been a difficult process. And it's still, I think, difficult for people to find that information.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we definitely need to fix what we have.
Yeah.
But it doesn't sound like Common Core is the correct path to be taken.
No. I mean, we have a 65% remediation rate in the
Yes.
state.
Yeah.
These individuals who did not validate the standards are saying we're going to continue with a remediation rate based on what they've seen. If you follow Common Core, you're going to set these kids up for remediation when they get to college.
Now, why isn't this group that invented this Common Core, why aren't they concerned about our children competing on a world stage, which really we are now?
That's a good question. I don't know. It's interesting because when they first came out with the standards, they called them internationally benchmarked standards. So what happened is all of these people around the country were saying, show us. Show us how these standards compare to the top performing countries. Show us. They couldn't do it. They have now backed off of that term. They now will know, like it was a term that was used on their website. They've backed off. They've removed that term, that these are internationally benchmarked standards, because so much pressure was put on them that we were saying, show us, prove it to us, and they couldn't do it. So they backed up. I don't know. I don't understand why, if you're going to set national standards, you wouldn't make them the best.
Yes.
It's interesting because Arne Duncan, who is the Secretary of Education, he came to New Hampshire probably about a couple years ago. And he came to a little Manchester school, and he was there in the morning, and I decided to pop in. And I just as a mom, just decided I'm going to go pop in and listen. It was open to the public, so I went and I listened in. And he was there with the mayor and some of the teachers, and he was sitting around a table, and they were all discussing it. And then afterwards, he got up and he was kind of mingling with the crowd. And so I walked up to him and I said, how do you reconcile states like Massachusetts and California lowering their standards for Common Core standards? And he had no excuse. He didn't even offer me any kind of reasoning for why they would do that. There was no justification. So if the Secretary of Education can't even justify it, then, I wonder why the New Hampshire jumped on something like this.
I mean, is it to just show the parents, oh, look, your kid's smart, when really on the world stage they aren't?
You wonder if the reason why people set the bar so low is to just keep people off their backs. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just a shame that they had the opportunity to really set the benchmark high, that they didn't even do that with them. I mean, and there's other issues that's just now starting to be uncovered. Data collection. This is a data mining effort. They are collecting information on these students now, and it is going out. And so some of the states are looking at privacy laws. New York is looking at privacy laws because the parents there are so concerned about all of this information on their children getting out to third parties, going to other departments within the government. Now, with the IRS scandal,
Yes, yeah.
you can see that this can be a real problem with information getting out. There's 400 points of data collection that they are collecting on students. Religious affiliation, political affiliation, things that they're going to ask these students, and they're going to collect this information. It's going to go into their file, and who knows where it's going. And a lot of this is being uncovered right now, so we don't have the, I can't say definitively, like, okay, they're going to collect this information and they're going to send it to this. organization, or they're going to send it here. This is just now starting to be unveiled, and parents are starting to get very concerned. Where is this information going to end up? I had one parent that said something about, now that this can be shared with the Department of Labor, when my child graduates from high school or college and decides to go get a job,
Yes.
is this going to be shared with his employer?
Yeah.
So their employer can look at, oh, well, you're this affiliation or you're that affiliation. I don't think I want to hire you. I mean, or maybe, your child had an issue maybe in 8th grade.
Yes.
A behavior problem that maybe was rectified as they got older, but, they're looking at this information now. Medical records, anything, special ed. These are the things that parents are really concerned about now, because the FERPA laws were eviscerated under President Obama. This information can now go out without parental consent.
Really?
Yeah. So we need some good privacy policies from your school boards, and we need some good privacy legislation. And we can look at New York for some of that guidance, because they're drafting legislation right now. The parents are just completely beside themselves, thinking that this information can get out there without their consent, without their approval. They don't even know it's getting out there. This data collection right now in New Hampshire can go anywhere, and we need to make sure that it's not going out there, or that at least you have some consent or control over it.
Well, the biggest thing is, why do they care? Because as an employer, I'm not allowed to ask, religion and other items that you mentioned. Yet the government's keeping track.
Yeah.
I would think the ACLU would be jumping all over it.
This is what I'm asking, and I think the ACLU is getting involved in other states, but I would like to see them become more involved in New Hampshire. That would be a great thing, because honestly, if this doesn't require their attention, I don't know what does.
Yes. Yeah. Because if it was a private company, I bet you they would be right up here.
Exactly.
But being the government, they're kind of friendly with them.
Yeah.
No, that's crazy. And now with the, how does a parent find out if their school is using Common Core? And is Common Core from K to 12, or is it just the high school?
It's K to 12.
Oh, it is. So
Yes,
it's the
it
whole
is. And it's
shooting match.
probably in every school right now. They're probably already aligning, because this was voted in by the Board of Education a few years ago. And by the way, 4 members on the Board of Education voted for this. 4 people in the state brought this entire thing, this entire reform effort, into our schools. 1 board member voted against it. These are not elected individuals. They are appointed. They're appointed by the governor under Governor Lynch. So they were appointed. This did not come from the people. This came from 4 appointed Board of Education members. The legislature didn't know this was going on. The legislators didn't know it was going on. They have never voted on this. School board members, I'll be honest with you, I am shocked that the school board members have not voted on this. It's being implemented in your schools, and the school board has not voted on this. They have not vetted this. They have not looked at the good, the bad, and the ugly to say, you know what, here's what we like. Here's what we don't like. Why didn't the New Hampshire Department of Education improve the standards that we had in our state and keep the state controlled? Why did they sign on to a national effort and give up that control? There's a 15% limitation on these standards that the National Association has said you can only adjust these standards by 15%. That's not local control.
No.
That's not state control. That's them telling us how we can adjust these standards. So if you want to improve these standards, good luck. Who do you go to? I don't even know who you go to. I wish I could tell you. I wish I could tell you. How do you improve your standards? I mean, they're saying by 15%. How do you calculate that? That's a good question for your superintendent. Your superintendent should be coming to you and saying, first of all, your school board should be voting on this. I mean, I am absolutely shocked that I'm seeing no school boards in the state vote on
So
this.
no school board?
Not that I'm aware of.
So Goffstown, none of them?
Not that I'm aware of. No. And as every superintendent in the state should have gone before their school board and said, this is what's going on, here's what it is, here's the critiques, here's the problems with it, but here's what I like about it. Bring it to your school board, lay it out.
Yes.
Let your school board do some investigating, look at it. Look at the good. I'm sure that you can find, there's always good and bad in everything.
Yeah.
Look at the good, fine. Look at the bad, and then make a decision. But this is just being brought in. And, they kind of have you because my understanding is if you don't follow Common Core, the feds take away title money, Title I money from your school. So it's kind of a coercive punishment upon your school if you don't follow Common Core. But that should be laid out. Here's how much money we're going to lose, but here's how much money we have to spend to meet Common Core standards. Cost benefit analysis. Is it worth it?
Yes.
Because a lot of people will tell you that, this is not worth the money that you're going to have to invest. You have to make sure you have a good computer system in your school, because the assessments pretty much have to be done by computers. So a lot of schools now have to start bringing in new computers, updating their systems, their software. That's not cheap. If you have not aligned your curriculum to Common Core with new textbooks, new materials, that's going to be money that you're going to have to pay. Professional development. So there's a lot of cost involved. I've gone before the Board of Education and I've asked, what is this going to cost the schools in New Hampshire?
Yeah, what do they say?
No answer.
Really?
Silence. People have asked the Commissioner of Education, what is this going to cost? No answer.
And somebody's got to enter all this into the computer.
Exactly.
I mean, is that an employee or?
Other states have come up with cost estimates. This is what it's going to cost California. California came up with an estimate. I don't know why New Hampshire has not come up with any estimate. Now, I have to ask you as a legislator, when you receive a bill, there's a fiscal note attached.
Yes.
So when you vote on something, you know what this is going to cost.
Yes.
This was voted in. I have no idea what it's going to cost the state of New Hampshire. I saw one figure that I think Education Week put out that estimated $289 per student. So how many students do you have in your district? You multiply that by 289. Now, I think that's just an estimate.
Yeah.
But this is something that the New Hampshire Department of Education should have had from the very beginning. They should have put that out there for everybody to see. But again, where's the transparency?
And the 281 is extra.
Right.
On top of what we're already paying.
Right. Unless there's some things that they would have replaced anyway. I mean, there could be some things within that amount that, if you were going to update your computers anyway, maybe that, that would take some of that. But,
yes.
it's hard. I wish I could tell you what this is going to cost, because I have no idea. They won't answer.
And now, how about private schools and homeschoolers? Are they being affected?
They will be. They will be, because as this becomes nationwide, the textbook publishers are now going to all align to this kind of curriculum. So a lot of these textbooks you're going to find coming into your private schools. Some of them may say, what, we're not going to align with Common Core, we're not going to use those textbooks, we're going to use, other textbooks. Great. But the ACT and the SATs are now Common Core aligned. So if your kids want to get into college and they're homeschooled, or they're in a private school, they have to take these tests. So now you have a situation where, a private school is going, oh great, we got to make sure these kids, can pass this test, because now they're going to pass that test with the public school kids. Should we align our curriculum?
Yes.
Whereas before it was independent, and you could just take the test and, compete on the same level playing field. That's not the case anymore. So that's got a lot of people concerned about the impact on private schools and on homeschoolers, most definitely. And quite frankly, I would hope to see a little more opposition from homeschoolers and from people in private schools, because this probably will have, I mean, we're already hearing in other states where this is impacting the private schools right now. Absolutely.
Yeah. And how long has it been around?
Since about 2009. 2009.
Oh, so.
Yeah, and at that time what happened was, this is when the economy kind of bottomed out.
Yes. Yeah.
And in order to get states to sign on, the federal government came out with a Race to the Top funds. It was a big grant. I think it was like $4.35 billion, and they said, look, if you sign on to these Common Core standards, if you do your teacher evaluations, if you do the longitudinal database, if you do all these things, we might give you some of this money. And they did. They doled out a lot of the Race to the Top funds. New Hampshire got nothing.
Really?
Nothing. We basically signed on for nothing.
It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't. I mean, you signed on for mediocre standards. You signed on for data collection on your children.
Yeah.
You signed on to have your taxes increased, because you're going to have to pay for this. And this is what you signed up for. And really without a whole lot of transparency from the Department of Education.
Yeah. That's the part that bothers me.
Yeah.
And now, have you talked to any teachers? about what is coming and what they're doing currently with it? Are they, good about it? Are they bad about it?
Well, I think teachers have been, especially your older teachers, have been through the reform effort so many times that I think a lot of them are going, okay, here we go again. Here we go again. Here's a new, this will just be replaced. No Child Left Behind is being removed. Now we're getting Common Core. So we went through that phase. Now we have to go through this phase. So I think a lot of them see it as, the next reform effort that we have to kind of tolerate. Other teachers, I think the younger teachers who may not have been around, I mean, I'm sure that you're going to find some that, hey, this looks good. What's the problem with this? We heard, attended a Manchester School Board meeting last night with a teacher from Wyndham, and she was all gung-ho about it. But what was interesting was she was a biology teacher. And this is just in math and English right now. So I kept thinking, why are they bringing out a biology teacher to say how great this is when it's really targeted towards math and English right now? I mean, she said she tried to meet some of the standards in her classroom, but I would have preferred to hear from a math or English teacher on really how well this is working in their school. So yeah, I'm sure you're going to find some teachers who look at this and think, hey, this is a great idea. I think one resource, Diane Ravitch is an education historian, and she writes a blog, and you can read from teachers across the country that are not happy about this at all. You just go to her, I mean, she finally came out against it. I think that she just felt the wrath from these teachers so much that, and I think she was skeptical about it anyway.
Yes.
And she's very much a teacher's advocate. And she allows them to kind of speak on her blog, and I read it all the time because I want to know what teachers are thinking, and to read from them. Yeah, you have to keep in mind that for teachers to publicly speak on anything that's going on in their school is very difficult.
It is.
It's I've got a few in New Hampshire that I communicate with, but I could never even give you their name because, these people have to feed their family, and if they even speak out against this, they will feel the wrath from the administrators. And so, I definitely take their views into consideration because I don't think you have to listen to the teachers. You have to listen to them. Whether it's, something that I disagree with them on or not. Yeah. You have to listen to everybody. But yeah, I think right now, since it's new, since it's starting up, they're kind of taking a wait and see. Some of them are just outspoken, just saying, no, this is not good for our schools.
Well, what concerns me is that other states, especially the big states, they're looking at it going, ooh, no, I don't think so. Right.
There's been some vocal opposition, too, in Chicago and in New York from the teachers and from the teachers' union saying this is not good. By the way, the National Teachers Union just said that they want to put a halt on this. Now, this is a teachers' union, Randy Weingarten, who supported Common Core.
Yeah.
And she is getting such backlash from the teachers right now. But she also received a large sum of money from the Bill Gates Foundation, who is supporting Common Core. So she has received a lot of money. She came out in support of Common Core, but the teachers are saying, there's all kinds of backlash going on right now. So finally, I think it was last week, she finally issued a statement, finally for the teachers, saying we need to put the brakes on this. This is we have our concerns too. So I think that she's finally realizing that she better start speaking up for teachers because she's supposed to be, their representation.
Well, yeah, but when you get a pocket full of money, people,
sometimes I think that
don't behave right.
And that's, I think, the concern among many people is, did you support this based on the donation from Bill Gates? My understanding is they supported it before the Common Core standards came out, but at the same time, maybe you do support national standards, but how can you support these? First of all, they're not even world-class standards. There's so many problems associated with it.
So how can our schools start competing on a world stage, which we have to go there?
They need to ignore the federal Department of Education, and they need to ignore the Department of Education in New Hampshire and focus on, you're paying six-figure salaries to these superintendents, to some of these principals. Why are they not coming to you and coming to your school board saying, you know what, here's the problems with this, but we can do better and here's how? Why are they not doing this? They're just going along, whatever they say, whatever the top says, they're just going along with it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Nobody is saying, I don't know anybody who has come out and said, here's the validation committee. They didn't approve of this. I think a good example is this. You hire somebody to install a propane furnace or something like that into your house.
Yep.
And the company, there's only one company out there, and they don't have a good reputation. But by gosh, now they've got this new system. They're going to install it in the house. And they go out to the leading experts in the country and say, we want you to validate this propane going into this home, that it is safe, that it is efficient, that it is good. And so the leading experts come in, two leading experts come in and say, this isn't safe for your family. Do you flip the switch? Do you turn it on and take that chance with your family? Or do you say, you know what, maybe this is not worth the risk? And nobody's doing that. Nobody's saying, nobody from the Department of Education is saying that. Nobody in these schools that this is coming into is saying, here's the good, here's the bad, and we need to really look at all of it.
Yeah. But I think the problem is that our administration, the superintendents are looking just for the federal money.
Yeah.
And that's sad because I was on the Goffstown Budget Committee. In 1 year, Stacy Buckley, our superintendent, which is leaving July 1st, she came before us in not Mountain View, it was Maple Ave. Mm-hmm. They didn't get enough parents that were low income in order to get the food stamps or whatever it is.
Yep.
And she almost cried.
Yeah.
She goes, oh, we lost that federal money.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because our kids are growing and they don't need this help. That's good. Let's applaud.
Yeah, exactly.
But she was crying almost. And, I was just shaking my head going, oh, my God, this is our problem.
Yes, this is our problem. We've become so dependent on federal money that we're willing to overlook a quality education for our kids. Somebody said the other day, our child's education has been, it goes to the highest bidder. It goes to the highest bidder. That's how sad.
Yeah.
That's how sad this has become. But until parents start speaking up and saying, we demand better, we deserve better for our kids, this is what you're going to get. This is what you're going to get. So parents need to do something.
Well, Anne Marie, I think what scares the heck out of me is that they've dumbed this test down. So now little Tommy is smart. He's going to go home and the parent's going to see the A or the B and little Tommy, you did so good. Mm-hmm. When really he didn't. So when he gets into college, then the parents are like, oh, this is nice. Now we got to take, 3 classes just to get you up to grade. And then you really can't compete on the world stage.
And that's already happening. It happened before Common Core, because I have to be completely honest about that. That was already happening before Common Core.
No child left behind. I'm not a fan of that one.
That's already happening.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us hoped that this would be some kind of fix or some kind of effort to fix that. It's not. It's not going to be. And I think until we get back to parents becoming more involved, parents having a voice, that, I'm concerned that we're just going to keep going in the wrong direction. Yeah. But you're absolutely right. I think that this assessment is going to be a little tougher. I think that we're going to see scores drop. I think that, the superintendent in curriculum superintendent Bedford said he expects to see scores drop. I think so too. I think that some of these have already been piloted, like in Kentucky. Some of the kids have already taken the test, and the scores are dropping.
Would that be good because that's going to wake parents up?
Well, I would hope so. But at the same time, are they dropping because they can't explain why 2 + 2 = 4? I can't tell you for sure. I wish it was a good test that I could say, here is a great test. Have your children take it because they're really going to tell you where they're at.
Yes.
I don't have a whole lot of confidence in this assessment yet. So when the scores fall, I definitely think parents need to take note. But I would also say that I would have my kids tested outside the school system. A lot of parents around the country are just refusing to let their kids take this assessment. They don't have any confidence in it.
Oh, so you can refuse?
Yes, the parents are doing it already. They're already saying, no, we're not going to let our kids sit through this, because now you're teaching to this test, and we know that the standards are dumbed down.
Yeah.
So now you're going to give them no, we don't want our kids being subjected to that. So they've been refusing, and I would suggest if you do that, you have your kids tested outside the system, and then really
so
figure
you
out.
can do that.
Yeah, really figure out where your child is, because the kneecap doesn't tell you. The kneecap is dumbed down too. So this is, these are assessments. They're not only testing your children on academics, they're assessing them on their values, their beliefs, their dispositions. This was a big issue in the House Education Committee the last couple of weeks, because there was a bill saying that we're going to, assess their academic abilities and dispositions. So I immediately said, dispositions, what do you mean by that? Why are you assessing my child's disposition? How do you do that objectively? How do you do that without do it without objectively?
Yeah, it's almost interpretation,
right.
isn't it?
Right. So it can become subjective. So it was interesting because the Democrats and the Republicans on the committee were both concerned about that. That was very nice to see.
Yes.
The House Education Committee, I have to say that I don't always agree with them, but they work together, and they really look at these things pretty well, both sides of the political aisle. And they were concerned also about the dispositions being assessed. Isn't that great?
Yes, yeah. And now, as a legislator, what can we put in to, protect privacy and to slow this down, or even put a brakes on?
Well, attending the Manchester School Board meeting last night, Mayor Guest has brought up that this is going, they are getting ready tomorrow. The school board, this is going before the Board of Education. They're going to be discussing the rules. So they're going to have the rules come out, and then it goes before the Rules Committee. And according to Mayor Guest, this could be stopped in the Rules Committee. So that could be one thing to focus on is having this, the brakes put on in the Rules Committee. Will that happen? I don't.
And that's at the state level.
Yes.
The Department of Education.
Right. So, I think that we need to look at privacy legislation for sure. I think you need to look at policies in your district that say parental consent. What information is getting out there on my child. I would suggest every parent check their child's record to make sure it's accurate. The last thing you want is, if it's going out there, to be inaccurate.
Yes.
So privacy is a big concern, and what I would focus on legislation. I just think we need to start communicating this to more people so they become aware, and they can let their legislators know that we don't want this in New Hampshire. There's a Facebook page called Stop Common Core New Hampshire, so we've been posting a lot on that Facebook page. There's even a link to a petition to stop it in New Hampshire. So I think, just getting out there and
I'll have to look that up. What was it again?
Stop Common Core in New Hampshire.
Stop Common Core.
In New Hampshire, and it's a Facebook page.
New Hampshire.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and that's Facebook.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, there's a link to a petition, so people can sign the petition. But I would, I'd say join the Facebook page, because it just start reading the information, and if you agree, then go sign the petition. I mean, I certainly don't. I'm certainly not going to ask somebody to sign a petition if they don't agree with it.
Yes.
But that's one way, and just let the legislators know that we don't want this, and we need to pass legislation and get this out of New Hampshire. You can do that. We can do that. We can override what the Board of Education voted in by legislation.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm all for that.
Yeah.
Because we really do, Anne Marie. We got to get the feds out.
Yeah.
Because have they ever passed anything down that has worked with our children? I don't recall.
I can't think of anything. Cato has a great graph, and it's Cato Institute, and they have a graph that shows, like our test scores, which have been going like this, and then the amount of spending, which has been going like this.
Yes.
And I say that in all seriousness, because so many parents think we have to fund our schools. I hear so many of them say we have to if we just spend more money, if we just spend more money. It's not about spending the money. It's about spending it wisely.
Yeah.
If you are spending money on lousy textbooks, on fuzzy math, then you're wasting it.
Yeah.
You're just throwing your money down the drain, because all you're going to need is tutors, remedial education when your kids get to college, which you'll have to pay for as a parent.
Yes. Yeah, I paid for it.
Right. So you're not only funding a school for letting your children down. Now you have to go and pick up the pieces, if you can.
Yeah.
if you can. So, be very, very leery of any tax increases to your school. I'm sorry to say that, but honestly, so much of it is being wasted.
It
so
is.
much. I mean, I have teachers tell me that they've never voted for a tax increase for their schools. I've had teachers tell me that.
Yeah,
And they're like,
yeah.
Anne Marie, you would have no idea how much we waste in this school district. So if teachers are not willing, and obviously not all of them, I certainly don't want to speak for all teachers, but when I have teachers telling me this, that's a pretty good indicator that there's a lot of waste, and they see it and they know it. And I think that why are we not going to teachers saying, here, give us a list of where we could cut costs? Does anybody do that?
No. Yeah, they don't. And what's funny is Goffstown the voters voted down the school budget.
Yeah.
And what's the first thing the school board said? Oh, the voters are out of touch and don't care about education.
Right.
Well, we do care about
Yeah,
education.
you just want it. They have to prove. They have to prove it. Again, you have Common Core, I'm sure, in your school. Did the administrators come before the school board? Did they say, here, look, under Common Core math standards, in geometry, the standards are now based on this invented geometry out of Moscow that failed the students there, and we're doing away with Euclidean geometry. If you have any engineers or any math people or any doctors in Goffstown, knowing that you do away with Euclidean geometry should send shockwaves to everybody because this is the fundamentals of geometry. They did away with Common Core standards. So, your school should be saying, okay, here's what Common Core came up with. We don't agree. I don't agree. I'm a math person, so when I found out that they did away with Euclidean geometry, I was just like, you've got to be kidding me. So here's what Common Core says, but we don't agree with it. We're going to teach the geometry we know that's been around for years that works. This is what we're going to use in this district. Did they do that? No. Of course people are going to vote down budget increases. If this is the kind of way that they are dealing with parents in this district, I would vote it down too until you prove to me that you are taking this seriously enough. And if they did not come before your school board and lay this all out for them, how do you reward something like that?
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is, I not that I want to pay more, but I'd be willing to look at something if we got results back.
Right.
And I mean, it's just common knowledge that I know of that this is just dumbing down the scores so that way more kids are lifted.
Or if somebody came to the school board and said, look, we made a huge mistake by bringing in fuzzy math.
Yes.
Our kids are not learning math. We understand that, you learn division one way. It is efficient. The standard algorithm for division is efficient. Everybody learned it that way. Yes, we're going to have a few kids that we have to maybe work with a little bit more, but it is time tested and proven. We're going to go back to that. But we have to get rid of these textbooks now. We have to bring in something solid.
Yes.
And they could really prove to you that they're going to replace it with Singapore math or Saxon math, two of the best math programs out there. I would say that's worth an investment. That's worth spending your money on because now you're going to actually provide these students with a quality math education.
Yep.
Or, grammar. I mean, a lot of schools don't even teach grammar anymore. Prove to us that, we're not teaching grammar anymore. We're not doing it very well. We're going to focus on these basic fundamental skills that then translate into a good writer later on.
Yes.
If they would do that and just communicate with the school board and communicate with parents, I think this is where parents would be more than willing to say, you know what? Or if they say, we're going to do away with this, and cost some money or save some money here and bring in this, just prove to us. But they don't do that anymore. It's kind of like, we know what's best, we're going to follow what the federal government says, and you just don't see the results that you expect.
So how does the community in a town say enough is enough? We're failing our children. How can we force the administrator that isn't voted in,
Yep.
in our school board, which is voted in, but
you have to have a strong school board. Your school board is the overseer of your district. Your school board has to take that power back. Oh, by the way, you will be lucky if we have a school board in a few years.
Oh, with Common Core?
Yes, because that is a target. They want to do away with school boards. This is going to, the focus is to make this state controlled, not locally controlled. There is an article that was issued today by Mark Tucker, one of the key players in Common Core, just came out with an article today calling on the elimination of school boards.
Really?
Yeah, they've already gotten rid of them in New York City. There's legislation in Illinois right now to get rid of local school boards. This is the target. Will it happen in New Hampshire? Let me just predict right now that it could happen, because this is in the plan stage. This is the planning stage.
Or they'll have it where the school board has no power.
And they're already doing that. And they didn't vote on Common Core.
Yeah.
They didn't vote on Common Core.
So could a parent in Goffstown or any town go to their school board and say,
absolutely.
Hello?
Because the courts would side with them. The courts still side with school boards. The courts will say that, you still have that authority. You just have to exercise it. You have to exercise that authority. If your superintendent is not following the will of the school board, get rid of them.
Yeah.
Fire them. The heads need to start rolling before they will take a school board seriously. But I think what happens is the school boards are intimidated because they're not fully aware of what, okay, Common Core sounds good, it's been sold to them. They don't get this other information. So they almost become a little intimidated to say, wait a second. But I do have school board members in New Hampshire that do stand up and say, no, we're not accepting this, and start digging. But unfortunately, a lot of times they're outnumbered. So you need a certain number on your school board. You need to get people elected that are willing to challenge. And too often we get school boards who are just rubber stamps.
Yes.
And I think that's some of the concern with doing away with school boards. All they've become is rubber stamps. I would still argue that we need representation. I don't care if they're a rubber stamp or not. We need that local representation. We just need good school board members to start stepping up to the plate and start challenging a school. This go along to get along is doing our children no good. No good.
So Goffstown may be lucky by receiving a new administrator.
If they hire the right kind of person and ask the right questions and make sure that they understand that we are the overseers. We answer to the people. Here's what we expect. It's going to be tough because a superintendent is so used to going, the federal government is the state government is kind of who they answer to. They're not used to answering to the people. They're, or trying to balance that.
Yes.
And you have to take that control back. And so they're not used to that. And so this could fall back on possibly losing funding, in certain areas. But that's got to be laid out. So many people say, okay, let's look at what's coming in from the federal government, but how much do we have to spend to get that money? So you might be spending more money to actually get that money. Why are they not putting that out there? Why is your superintendent not saying, this is what we have to spend, and we have to spend $50 million just to get $25 million? That doesn't make sense.
But they do it.
But they'll do it. So
I scratched my head on that one.
Right.
And I've seen them do it, and it's like, what?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
No.
I know.
No. But I know that, so when the new superintendent comes, the parents out there need to start saying, hey, hello.
Yeah.
What about Common Core?
Exactly.
How do we get a
or
better
ask
education?
them what they think about it. What do you think about Common Core? If they come and they sell it to you, you've got a problem. You don't have somebody who can critically think about Common Core. I mean, that's one of the points I made last night at the Board of Education meeting in Manchester, because I went and the Department of Education came and they laid out how great Common Core was to the school board in Manchester. And when I got up there and spoke, I said, I've listened to the Board of Education several times now present Common Core, and they've said that they want to teach our kids to think critically.
Yes.
And yet, they come before you and they offer no information on Professor Stotsky or Professor Milgram's critique of the standards. They gave you nothing, no information on that. How do you, as a board, think critically about this if they're not even willing to give you this information? So if you're trying to teach somebody to think critically and you're not even presenting both sides of the picture, it doesn't even make sense. So yes, if you're going to hire a new superintendent, I would say, what do you think of Common Core? And see how they present it. Are they willing to say, you know what, here's what I think of Common Core. Here's the good, here's the bad. You're the school board. I will lay this out before you. and we will work together and we'll figure out what's best for Goffstown. And if there are problems with Common Core, and we go ahead with it, but we're going to work to improve them. I mean,
Yes.
that might
Yeah.
be somebody worth a consideration. Good luck.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
luck finding somebody like that. But that's raising the bar in Goffstown. That would be raising the bar in Goffstown.
And that's
for
what
a
I wanna do.
superintendent. Yep.
Yeah, I want the best. Mm-hmm. You know, if we're going to pay the money, let's
That's
get
right.
a good
You should
return.
demand the best. I mean, they're not, they're making good money.
Well, and our children deserve it.
Absolutely.
Well, we're at the end of the show, and I just want to thank you for coming on. It went by very, very fast.
As I told you it
Well,
would.
that's it. I think you could stay another hour.
Probably so.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Anne Marie.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate
Yep.
you coming on. And again, we had Anne Marie Banfield, and she's with Cornerstone Action, and she's the education director. And make sure you look up, what is it, Truth in America, in American Education.
Yes.
Truth in American Education. Look that up. I think you'll find that, as
Yes.
Anne Marie says, very interesting. And again, this is John Burt, New Hampshire Politics with John Burt, and thank you for watching. Until next time, have a good day.